I used to believe that if I was good enough, if I tried hard enough, then one day my parents would finally see me. But I was wrong. So wrong that now, looking back, I want to burst out laughing in the middle of the night. The night my brother got the keys to his very first house, while I stood quietly in the corner with a cheap cupcake in my hand. No candles, no congratulations, no one asked how I felt, they just said, "Anna, can you take a few pictures for us?" Ever since I was old enough to notice the difference, I knew I was the one behind the scenes of my own life. My brother's name is Liam. The golden boy. The pride of the family. Everything about Liam was shiny, brand new, and perfectly model child material. I was the opposite. From birthdays and holidays to parent-teacher meetings, I was always the tag-along. Liam's little sister, never just me. I still vividly remember Christmas when I was 8. Liam got a brand new Nintendo Switch, exactly the one he'd wanted all year. I opened my present and found a gray hoodie, size L, with the logo of a local HVAC company. Still had the 40% off clearance sticker on it. It was so big I was practically swimming in it. Mom laughed and said, "This one will last you a while. Besides, you look cute in it." I nodded, forced a smile, and turned away to hide my burning eyes. That was the pattern that repeated throughout my childhood. When Liam turned 16, my parents gave him a shiny red Ford Fusion with a giant bow on the hood. They called it a well-deserved reward for a good, hard-working son. Me? I got an old bike from the neighbor, with a flat-back tire and a handlebar that tilted to one side. When I looked surprised, Dad just said, "Riding a bike is the best way to stay healthy, Anna." I didn't say anything, I just kept pedaling that bike to school every day, even in the freezing rain. I can't remember the last time I had a proper birthday. But I remember Liam's 18th perfectly. My parents rented a fancy Italian restaurant, invited nearly 50 guests, had a 2-tier cake, and even hired a live band. My own 18th birthday? A simple dinner at home with frozen lasagna Mom microwaved. She laughed and said, "I was too busy to prepare anything, but lasagna's good enough. You don't need all that fancy stuff like Liam." I nodded like I always did. That same quiet nod to keep dinner from getting awkward. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood in the suburbs of Ohio, in a beige 2-story house with a white picket fence around the yard. There was a little wooden sign on the lawn that read, "Family is everything." But to me, it was a framed lie. In the kitchen, Mom would always be fussing over some new Pinterest recipe. Dad loved grilling outside, especially on weekends when Liam's friends came over. They'd jump into the neighbor's pool, which we borrowed, while I was assigned to cut salad, set the table, and clean up afterward. "Anna's so helpful, always supporting her brother. You're a real team player, you know that?" Dad would say as he handed me a cheap soda can. Every time I looked at the photos of Liam in the living room. Graduation pictures. Photos with his car, his sports trophies, standing with Mom and Dad. I felt my chest tighten. And me? Not a single photo of just me. If I was in one, it was as background to Liam's smile. When it came time for college, Liam had everything paid for: tuition, housing, textbooks, not a thing missing. "He needs to focus on studying, so of course we support him," Mom said. And me? I had to fill out financial aid forms myself, work part-time at the campus library, and even sell old textbooks to cover tuition. But I never complained, I was used to it. I used to think maybe I was just being too sensitive. That maybe my parents had their reasons. That as the youngest I was supposed to be more understanding. But the older I got, the more I saw the blatant favoritism for what it was. I wasn't being loved equally, it wasn't a feeling, it was a fact. And then came my college graduation. I didn't expect a big party like Liam's, but I hoped, at least for a decent meal, a proper congratulation. Instead, they took me to a mediocre burger joint, rushed through dinner, and shoved a thin white envelope into my hand. I opened it. Inside was a $3 scratch-off lottery ticket. We thought this would be fun, Mom beamed. Hey, you might hit the jackpot, Dad added, like it was some poorly timed joke. I looked at them, looked around the table. No cake, no gift, no card, just that lottery ticket lying alone in my hand, a symbol of how little they really expected from me. I laughed. But it was the kind of laugh that catches in your throat, a sound almost like a sob. I held up the ticket and said, "So I guess this is my only shot at getting something worthwhile from this family, huh?" No one disagreed, no one responded, and no one met my eyes. From that moment on, I knew I had to wake up. No more clinging to a family that only remembered my name when they needed someone to do the dishes. But I had no idea where my life was headed. Until that scratch-off ticket, which felt like a cruel joke, ended up changing everything. I brought the ticket home in a torn wallet. The only thing I still had from high school. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building in Columbus, Ohio. One corner of the window was cracked, and the heater squealed like a trapped soul. I lived with a mouse I temporarily named Rick, because at least he remembered me every day. I tossed the ticket on the kitchen table, right next to a pile of unpaid electric bills and 2 packs of instant chicken noodles. It lay there, its dull shimmer under the dim yellow light. Part of me wanted to tear it to pieces, to burn it to ashes. But I didn't. I let it sit there as undeniable proof that I had never been a priority in that family. After a dinner of plain noodles and an expired can of soda, I curled up on an old chair passed down from a former classmate. I stared at the ticket. My graduation gift. While Liam, my brother, got a $210,000 house in the suburbs with a garden, a white picket fence, and his own garage, I got $3 worth of false hope. I remember that dinner like a lucid nightmare. Mom sat across from me, beaming like she had just given me the greatest gift. "You should be grateful. Who knows, maybe you'll become a millionaire," she said, stuffing extra ketchup packets into my bag like they were bonus gifts. Dad was busy texting someone, not even looking up. "We had to borrow more money to help Liam buy that house. You should understand," he said flatly, when I asked if they could help pay off some of my student loans. I let out a dry laugh, a hollow sound that chilled even me. After that day, I wasn't just the shadow in the family anymore. I was the one who disappeared. From every dinner, every family group chat, every birthday call. I got a full-time job at a local marketing firm, writing content for small businesses. In the morning, I wrote ads for cleaning services, nail salons, and Italian restaurants. At night, I picked up shifts at a late-night diner serving burgers, cleaning tables, and enduring awkward flirting from drunk customers. Every day, I walked 4 blocks back to my apartment. A place where no one was waiting for me. But at least it was mine. Not Liam's. Not my parents'. Friends used to ask why I didn't cut them off completely. Honestly, I didn't know. Maybe somewhere deep inside, I still held onto a sliver of hope that one day, Mom would knock on my door, hug me tight and say, "I'm sorry, Anna. I was wrong." But that never happened. Instead, the only thing I got from her were forwarded emails with titles like, "10 Signs You're a Selfish Person," or, "Family is Everything, Appreciate Them Before It's Too Late." I didn't reply. I just hit delete and went back to my unpaid bills. Liam still sent the occasional message like, "Can you help me move some patio chairs this weekend?" Or, "Amanda wants to change the kitchen colors. Do you think ash gray or cream looks better?" I used to want to scream, "I have my own life, I'm not your free interior design assistant." But instead I just typed, "Busy, sorry," and deleted the chat. There was one time I went to Liam's house, more like got pressured into it, for his 30th birthday party. Mom threw a big celebration with karaoke, a buffet, and over 60 guests. I showed up late, stood in the corner of the yard with a beer and a cupcake. No one asked what I did, where I lived, or if I had someone in my life. I was background, a decoration no one noticed. That night, I went home and lay on my old mattress, staring at the peeling ceiling. How far had I come from where I started? The answer? Not far enough. I cleaned my kitchen one boring Sunday night, swept the floor, scrubbed the sink, tossed out old newspapers, and then I found the lottery ticket again. It was buried in a drawer next to a rusty pair of scissors and a ripped roll of tape. I picked it up. The silver coating was still intact. I stared at it so long I lost track of time. My hands trembled as I read the faded print. Match 3 symbols to win up to $10 million. I set it back down on the table. It was just paper. But somehow, it felt as heavy as all the anger I'd been carrying. I didn't scratch it, I left it alone. Because if I scratched it and didn't win anything, then all I'd be left with was the truth. I was still that same forgotten, broke, left behind Anna. But if I left it untouched, I still had a shred of illusion, a chance however slim, that life could change. Sometimes, a dream is worth more than a broken reality. I went to bed with the tickets still on the table like a dagger under my pillow. I dreamed I walked into Liam's living room, held up the ticket, and said, "I won, you don't get to look down on me anymore." And then I laughed in my dream. Laughed so hard it hurt. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 as usual, made cheap coffee, put on my second-hand coat, and headed out to the bus stop. A new day began, with the same boring job, fake coworkers, and grumpy clients. The lottery ticket still sat on the table. I wasn't ready to face the truth, whether it was hope or disappointment. But I knew one thing for sure. I had started to pull away from the universe called family. And I wasn't going back. Whether I won or not, I was no longer the Anna who silently endured everything. I was stepping out of someone else's shadow. And for the first time, that shadow was mine. I didn't find out Liam was engaged through a call, or even a check-in message. I found out from a photo in the family group chat. The one I muted months ago. In the photo, Liam was kneeling in the middle of a vibrant flower garden, holding up a chestnut-sized ring in front of Amanda, his girlfriend of the past 2 years. She was sobbing, and my parents stood behind them, smiling as if they had just witnessed the most miraculous thing on earth. Below the photo was a caption from my mother. "He proposed, we have a new daughter-in-law, so proud of my son." Proud? That word had never been used for me. I stared at the screen, not quite sure why my heart felt like it was tightening. It wasn't because Liam was getting attention. I was used to that. It was because, I realized, I wasn't even surprised. As if everything in my life, no matter how bitter, had already been written. And I was just rereading a script someone else had written for me. About 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mom. "Anna, we're throwing an engagement party for Liam and Amanda at the end of this month. Make sure you come, okay?" "I'm working both shifts, Mom. It's going to be hard to manage." "Oh, come on. It's not every day we have a special event like this. I already booked the restaurant and invited over 80 people. Even your dad's relatives from Pennsylvania are coming." I bit my lip. 80 people for an engagement party? I graduated college with honors, and didn't even have 8 people at dinner. "I'll try to make it," I said. An old habit I hadn't shaken. Pleasing others. Even when I felt empty. The party was held at an upscale restaurant downtown. The same place I used to stare into through the glass, wishing I could be a guest inside instead of a waitress. That day, I wore a plum-colored dress I bought on sale last season, tied my hair back neatly, and slipped on a pair of heels with worn-out soles. As I stepped in, the room filled with soft jazz music, warm golden lights, and cheerful faces chatting away. I felt like a background character who had walked into the wrong scene. Liam stood in the center of the room, holding Amanda in his arms. Both wore white, like a royal couple about to ascend the throne. My parents stood beside them, champagne flutes in hand, their smiles never leaving their faces. No one noticed I had arrived, not a single person. I made my way around the room, poured myself a glass of water, and found a quiet corner to sit in. Every conversation around me shared the same theme. "Liam's doing so well. Amanda is such a sweetheart. The wedding will be absolutely magical." A cousin sitting nearby whispered to someone next to her. Liam's so lucky, his parents are covering everything, the restaurant, the honeymoon. I heard they're going to the Maldives. I almost choked on my water. The Maldives? I'd never even had enough money to leave the state. A wave rose inside me. Not jealousy, but disgust. Disgust at the fake sense of fairness my family always preached, only to throw me aside when it mattered most. As the party neared its end, I decided to leave early, but Mom caught me before I could slip out. "Anna, I was looking for you. Why were you sitting somewhere no one could see you?" I forced a smile. "Well, you were busy being the center of the universe. I didn't want to steal the spotlight." She laughed, but there was a flicker of caution in her eyes. "So what did you think of the party?" she asked, her voice full of hopeful anticipation. "Grand." "Very Liam," I replied, unable to hide the bitterness in my tone. She paused, then spoke like she was delivering a lesson. "You should be happy for your brother, he deserves all of this, he's worked so hard." I squinted slightly. "And what about me?" She tilted her head, as if she didn't understand the question. "I mean, when I graduated, no one threw a party, no one asked me what I needed. I got a lottery ticket, Mom, $3. She laughed lightly, as if I were joking. "You think I forgot? We were tight on money back then, after buying Liam's house. But you were fine. You're strong. You're independent." I nodded, my eyes felt like stone. "And now? You're paying for Liam's wedding, the honeymoon. What's next? A second house? A retirement account?" Mom started to look irritated. "Anna, no one's stopping you from working harder. If you want what Liam has, you need to earn it." I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "I'm working 2 jobs, Mom. I wake up at 5 a.m. and come home past midnight. What you call not trying hard enough is my real life." She pressed her lips together. "Your tone is very disrespectful." I stepped back, the smile still on my face. "I respect the truth, you don't." I turned and walked away, leaving my mother standing there amid the music and clinking glasses, just as out of place as I had been when I arrived. On the way home, I pulled over at a quiet gas station, wondering how far I had really come, and whether I could ever turn back. I thought about the lottery ticket still lying in the kitchen drawer. I had never scratched it. It was still intact, like a line drawn between forever broke and change your destiny. I looked up at the night sky. No stars, just flickering streetlights like tired heartbeats. But somewhere inside me something broke. Not with pain, but with release. I didn't need a party. I didn't need congratulations. I didn't need validation from a family that had never truly seen me. I needed myself. I don't know what made me pick up that lottery ticket that day. Maybe it was the urge to end it all, to break free from the joke called family. Or maybe it was just a random impulse on a gray day without sunlight. That day was a Saturday. I had just gotten home after a 10-hour shift at the diner. The smell of grease clung to my hair. My hands were burning from the industrial dish soap. The apartment was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I opened the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept everything I didn't want to see. Unpaid bills, junk mail, single socks without a pair, and that lottery ticket. I stared at it like I was facing an old wound that hadn't healed. After a few seconds of hesitation, I pulled out my phone and entered the numbers from the ticket into the official Ohio State Lottery website. The screen lit up. I typed in each number, my hands trembling like I was holding a knife. 8, 15, 27, 34, 42, 56. I hit the check button. Waited. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst. The result appeared in just 2 seconds, but to me, time stopped. "Congratulations, you've won the jackpot, $195 million. I didn't scream, I didn't jump. I just stood there, staring at the screen like someone who couldn't believe they were still alive. After a few seconds, I sank to the floor, my back against the cabinet, hands on my head, trying to breathe, so I wouldn't pass out. A laugh slipped out of my mouth, dry, twisted. A $3 ticket. And I had just become a millionaire. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom, not Liam, not my coworkers, not even my best friend. I spent the whole night researching what to do if you win the lottery. The first answer: tell no one. The next morning, I called an independent financial advisor with an office in the suburbs. I chose her because of her 5-star reviews and a profile photo with a sincere smile. Her name was Carol Landry, probably in her 50s, sharp eyes and a voice that instantly made you feel safe. When I walked into her office, I was still shaking. Carol looked at me like she'd seen 100 people like me. People whose minds were being threatened by a number too big to grasp. "First of all," she said after hearing my story, "you cannot tell anyone about this. Second, we're going to set up a limited liability company, an LLC, to receive the money on your behalf. That way, your identity stays anonymous to the public." "What about taxes?" I asked. "After taxes and mandatory deductions, you'll have about $125 million. I swallowed hard. $125 million. A number so big, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I used to pinch every dollar for gas, every penny for instant noodles. Now, I could buy an entire neighborhood. Carol helped me set up a long-term financial plan. We opened secure investment accounts, created some savings holdings, and, most importantly, I wasn't allowed to spend extravagantly for at least 6 months. I followed every word she said like an obedient student. She also told me to avoid doing anything that would draw attention. I nodded. I knew better than anyone. If my mother ever found out, she wouldn't waste a second before calling me her pride and joy. Liam would probably pitch some startup investment idea and demand to be CEO. I guarded that secret like it was a weapon. No one could know. No one had the right. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans. Clean, final. One click erased 4 years of struggle and sleepless nights. I cried when I got the confirmation email. "Your loan balance has been paid in full." Then I quit the diner job without notice. I left an envelope with $5,000 for Linda, the manager, and a handwritten note. "Thank you for being kind to me when the world wasn't." I bought a black Audi Q5, leather interior, nothing flashy but incredibly refined. When I sat behind the wheel, I felt like a different person, no longer the girl hunched over dirty dishes, but someone in control of her own life. I still went to work at the marketing company, but I didn't tell anyone about the change. I moved out of my old apartment and rented a small villa in the western suburbs. White walls, stone-paved porch, a garden full of lavender. I didn't throw parties, didn't post on social media, didn't share a single bragging photo. I just sat on the balcony each morning with a hot cup of coffee, listening to the birds and the wind rustling through the trees. Freedom, it was real. I opened a new bank account, reset everything to be more private. All of it was done in silence. My family had no idea. They still thought I was living in some rundown apartment, struggling with 2 jobs. And I let them believe that. Because I didn't need them. I didn't need pitying looks or hypocritical advice. One afternoon when Liam texted, "Hey, are you free to help me pick a sofa for the new living room?" I looked at the screen and turned off my phone. No reply, no apology. I was no longer the same Anna, the girl sitting quietly at someone else's party, holding a glass of water and forcing a smile. I was me. A woman who had learned the most valuable lesson: never wait for others to recognize your worth. Create it and protect it. But I also knew, every secret has an expiration date. And when my family found out I was no longer poor Anna, the storm would come. I was ready. And I swore, this time, I wouldn't back down. I knew they would come back. Not because they missed me. Not because they loved me. But because they smelled money. It all started with a random Facebook post from an old friend. In the photo, I was standing next to my new Audi, holding a coffee cup outside a fancy cafe in the suburbs. I didn't tag anyone, didn't comment, didn't share. But algorithms don't keep secrets. And my mom never missed a chance to snoop. 3 days later she called. Anna, how have you been lately? I heard you moved. Got a new car, huh? I almost choked on my coffee. Her voice was unusually sweet, the kind of soft that only appeared when she wanted something. It's nothing special, Mom, I just moved somewhere quieter. Oh, I also heard it's close to Liam's place. What a coincidence, huh? I stayed silent. She kept laughing. How about you come over for dinner this Sunday? The whole family misses you. I said yes. Not because I wanted to see them, but because I wanted to see what roles they'd play. Liam's house hadn't changed much. Neatly trimmed lawn, yellow fairy lights along the porch, and that suffocatingly sweet air freshener smell. I walked in, carrying a bottle of wine. Just expensive enough not to be looked down on, just cheap enough not to be flashy. Anna, you look so different, my mom exclaimed, hugging me like we had just reunited after a world war. Liam came out from the kitchen wearing a white polo, smiling like nothing had ever happened between us. There she is, check out the new sofa, what do you think? I nodded. Looks big. We sat down at the table. My dad was carving roast beef, watching me like a tax inspector eyeing his biggest case yet. Dinner passed with dull stories about the upcoming wedding, tablecloth colors, outdoor photo locations, and how the budget keeps growing. I ate in silence, forcing down tough steak, trying not to lose my temper. I knew the punch was coming. It just hadn't landed yet. It wasn't until the third dinner I agreed to that they finally got to the point. My mom ladled more soup into my bowl, her gaze as sweet as burnt sugar. Anna, I'm really so proud that you've settled down. New car, new place, living independently. That's what I always hoped for you. I nearly laughed. Hoped? She once gave me a clearance hoodie for my birthday. Thanks, Mom, I said flatly. Liam cleared his throat, then slid a stack of papers across the table toward me. We're planning to expand the house a little. Amanda wants her own yoga room, and I could use a bigger garage for another car, you know? Making space for family. I flipped through it. Floor plans. Construction cost breakdown. Total, $78,000. At the bottom, a note. If possible, please add $22,000 to help cover the wedding budget. Overage. It's a good investment, Liam said, flashing a confident smile like he'd just closed a deal with a bank. I set the papers down. Gently. Very gently. My mom chimed in. It'd be great if you could help, after all. You're doing pretty well these days, aren't you? I looked at her. Doing well thanks to the $3 you gave me on graduation day. The room went still. My dad sniffed. Liam looked away. My mom tried to hold on to her smile. Back then the family was struggling, you know that. I nodded. I know, down to the details. I know Liam got a car at 16. I know he had a scholarship and still got his tuition paid by you. I know he had his engagement party at a 5-star restaurant while I had frozen lasagna. I know when I asked if you could help me pay down some of my student loans, you told me, try harder. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut like a blade through the glossy paint they were trying to smear over this dinner. And now that I have a little success, suddenly, you're proud of me? Because I might be able to pay for Liam's new garage? My mom started crying. The kind of tears you shed when you're playing your part, right? Anna, I just want us to be close again. I know I made mistakes. But you can't live your whole life in resentment. I stood up, pushing the chair back. I live in truth, not resentment. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. Liam called after me. I think you should know how to share. We're family after all. I turned around and smiled. No one's stopping you from working harder, Liam. Then I left, leaving behind the people who only called me family when they needed money. On the way home, I rolled down the window and let the night air hit my face. I felt light, not because I said no to giving them money, but because, for the first time in my life, I said no to a role. I was no longer Anna, the girl standing in the corner taking graduation photos for Liam. No longer the one who got a lottery ticket as a gift. No longer the forgotten name on the engagement party guest list. For the first time, I had the right to say no. I blocked my mom's number. Blocked Liam's too. And when my dad tried calling from another number, I added that one to the block list without a second thought. Not because I was angry, not because I hated them. I was just done. Life after that night felt like stepping out of a smoke-filled room. I took a deep breath, felt the cool air hit my lungs, a feeling both strange and familiar. I no longer flinched at the sound of a phone ringing. No more wondering, are they calling to borrow money again, or, what do they want this time? I was truly living, not living to be seen. I moved to a new house in the northern suburbs, far from anyone who used to know me as Anna, the second child. The house had a black iron fence, a rose garden out front, and a reading room flooded with natural light. Every morning I woke up without an alarm. Made myself a latte with the Italian coffee machine in the kitchen. The one luxury I allowed myself after years of going without. I invested exactly as Carol, my financial advisor, had recommended. Blue chip stocks, rental properties, and a few promising tech startups. The money grew quietly and steadily. I didn't live like a millionaire. I just lived like someone who could finally breathe without being choked by obligation, expectation, or dismissal. No one knew I'd won the lottery. The neighbors thought I was a freelance marketing specialist working remotely. Old friends said I seemed stable and mature. Former coworkers guessed I'd inherited something from a rich aunt. I let them think whatever they wanted. The truth is, I didn't need anyone to believe in me anymore. That fall, I went to New Orleans to listen to jazz. In the winter, I traveled to Colorado, tried skiing, and nearly broke my neck because I stupidly didn't hire an instructor. In the spring, I took a painting class in Austin. And in the summer, I stayed home, read books, grew tomatoes in the backyard, and played piano just for myself. I started an anonymous blog to share my journey of freeing myself from family manipulation. Not to be famous, not to be praised. Just to have a space to release all the years I stayed silent until my throat felt raw. And then, one day, I saw Liam again. I was sitting at a small cafe downtown, laptop open, earbuds half plugged in, when that voice came from behind me. Anna? I turned around. Liam in a wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes and messy hair. He no longer looked like America's golden boy. There was something in his eyes. Tired, confused, and just a bit bitter. I nodded. Liam. He pulled out a chair and sat down without asking. I didn't stop him. I didn't greet him either. I heard you made it big. I took a sip of coffee, eyes still on the screen. Did you? People say you won the lottery, he continued, his voice a mix of sarcasm and hesitation. I saw you driving an Audi, living in a fancy neighborhood, traveling. Don't you think you should share with the family? I closed my laptop, looked him straight in the eye. Family? Oh, you mean the people who handed me a $3 lottery ticket and told me to try harder? Liam gave a weak laugh. Well, everyone makes mistakes. But seriously. He leaned back, arms crossed, eyes cold like he was exposing me. You just got lucky. It's just winning the lottery. Nothing to be proud of. I smiled. Not angry, not hurt. Just smiled like I'd heard an old tired story. Maybe you're right, I said calmly. I got lucky with the ticket. But everything after that? Every dollar I kept. Every decision I made. Every person I chose not to forgive. That was all me. No one taught me how to survive in a family that treated me like a backup plan. No one showed me how to manage $85 million without losing my mind. And absolutely no one helped me step out of your shadow. He said nothing. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and gave him one final polite smile. Good luck with the rest. Then I walked away, leaving Liam sitting there, lost in a crowded cafe, no longer the center of attention for the first time in his life. That evening I stretched out on the armchair on my balcony and looked at the stars. The wind was gentle, the garden lights cast a warm glow on the grass. I played a soft jazz track, poured a glass of white wine, leaned back, and smiled. Well, I didn't need them anymore. Not their apologies, not their praise, not their delayed approval. I had myself, completely. My life used to be a stage where I was only a background character. Now I didn't need the stage. I was rewriting the script. I was the director. I was living, not for anyone else, just because I was worth it. And to me, that wasn't winning the lottery. That was freedom. My story isn't about money. It's about reclaiming my worth after years of being overlooked and forgotten. I used to think I needed my family's approval to feel seen, but in the end, the only thing I really needed was the courage to let go. Winning the lottery didn't change who I was. Having the strength to say no and live on my own terms. That was my greatest victory. The biggest lesson? No one gets to decide your worth, except you. What do you think about Anna's story and the bold choices she made? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real and moving stories about life, family, and the journey to becoming who we truly are.